The first topic that I want to cover is abandoning the pursuit of perfection. The reason I want to talk about that is this is a trap that a lot of content creators fall into. And I understand why we adopt this mentality, and I understand why we fall into this trap. Because anything that we put out, any piece of content that we release, whether it be a video, a podcast, a tweet, anything, that could be somebody's first impression of us. And God forbid, it would be somebody's first and only impression of us. If somebody were to stumble across a video or a podcast you put out and you had second guesses about it, you thought the production was subpar, and they come across it and say, wow, this production is subpar, all of your insecurity about that episode was proved correct. So I understand why we fall into that trap, because we want to make sure that any impression people have of us is good. Anytime we have the opportunity to be in front of a new person, that's an opportunity to get somebody to watch, listen, or follow us. And as online content creators, that's the goal for a lot of people. So I understand why we adopt that mentality. The issue with it is perfection is unattainable. So if you are constantly waiting to publish until your production is perfect, you're never going to put anything out. If you're waiting to make sure that nothing has an issue, you're going to be constantly editing. It is unachievable. So instead of trying to reach this pinnacle of production, I think you ought to abandon that completely. I think a lot of content creators need to adopt the mentality of, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, that's not offensive. Yeah, it's legible. That's intelligible. It's good enough. It's kind of a joke, but I think that's a healthier way to approach things. That's good enough. But I think the more actionable way to avoid the pursuit of perfection is, instead of seeking perfection on everything that you do, just say, I want to be better than the last thing that I produced. I want this episode of the podcast to be better than last week's episode of the podcast. How am I going to accomplish that? This is something that I've ranted about for years. Find one thing you want to improve every single time you publish something and improve upon it. It may not do much from week to week or from publish to publish, but over years, the improvements will be massive. They will be drastic. If you want an example of that, go look at the first video on Podcastage and look at the most recent video on Podcastage. I'd like to think there's quite a big difference, quite a big improvement. The only reason I am where I am on the Podcastage channel and on this channel is because I adopted the mentality of, yeah, that's good enough. My early videos are garbage. My early podcasts are garbage, at least compared to where I am today. And that's exactly how it should be. That was 7 years ago. If I had not improved over 7 years to make those old videos look bad, I would be doing something wrong. I will never reach perfection. None of us will ever reach perfection. We will never have a perfect video, a perfect recording, a perfectly processed piece of audio. So we need to abandon that mentality and just say, yeah, that's good enough. The reason this popped into my head, I am sure all of you who listen to this show regularly know. Last week's episode. The audio quality on last week's episode was, to say the least, rough. It was pretty darn bad, bordering on unpleasant. No, I will say unpleasant to listen to. I won't say painful. but way below my standards. What happened? I am not making excuses. This is 100% user error. Idiot person making mistake and you having to live with it. I had set up a microphone. I had set up the processing, which is going to tape. Not literally. I don't record to tape. I am burning the processing into the recording. Set it up. Got it working. Right before I recorded, I said, I think it'll be fun to set it up like it's a talk show. Let's take it off this, put it on the desk, and then reset all the levels and do all this stuff. I didn't do any test recordings after that to verify my settings were still correct. And what did we get? An overcompressed nightmare. It may be one of the worst sounding podcasts I have ever put out. I don't think I've ever had anything that compressed. And it was compressed at the same time as having an expander or gate, so it had this very weird effect. Because when I talk, the compressor was so aggressive, it was bringing up the reflections and the room tone, but then when the expander came in and attenuated the signal about 10, 15, 20 dB, the room tone was gone. So it created this very weird effect. That's what got me thinking about this, and while I was editing, because I heard it, it's not as though I recorded it and published it, I made the conscious decision. That's good enough. That's good enough. It's intelligible. It's not painful. It's not piercing. I am not throwing my headphones across the room. It's good enough. Now, because I am an audio YouTuber, that may be embarrassing. That's fine. Everybody makes mistakes. And frankly, I didn't feel as though it was worthy of spending another 2 hours re-recording everything, saying the exact same things over and over again, because I liked how I presented all the information. I thought it was a pretty darn good show. I didn't want to risk having 2 hours turn into 4 hours turn into 8, because I liked how I did it. I know how good it could be. That take wasn't good. Let's do it again. We'll do it live. I didn't want to go down that road, so I made the executive solo podcaster decision. That's good enough. And that's what I am advocating for. The abandonment of the pursuit of perfection for your productions. That's a lot of P's. And adopting, I'll be better than last week. I'll be better than the last thing that I put out. And for me, that's going to be real easy because last week's audio is what needs to be improved, and it doesn't take much to improve upon it. Much healthier way to approach your productions, but more importantly, it gives you actual actionable items to improve. The pursuit of perfection is somewhat of an ambiguous, nebulous thought. What is perfection even? I don't know. But I know what to improve from last week. I can do something about that. So that is the first rant that I wanted to go on. Hopefully that can help you produce content and put it out there and improve over iterations, over years. And at the end of those years, you will be impressed how far you have come.